family today.
Hi, I'm Eric Asher, host of Inside New Orleans Sports. Join me every Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m. for a live broadcast of Inside New Orleans Sports, featuring a reporters roundtable with local media members that cover the Saints, Pelicans, LSU, Tulane, and prep sports. Don't forget your calls are always welcome. That's Inside New Orleans Sports, Thursdays 6 to 7 p.m. with a rebroadcast on Fridays 10 to 11 p.m. on WLAE-TV.
You're watching WLAE, New Orleans Public Television.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency. Auto, home, flood, business, 504-556-0809. Dave Miette, INSagency.com.
CNC Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, CNC provides patient-centered care for your entire family. CNC Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we cover all the home teams we always do. We got one of the best out there. Sean Fazenda, Fox 8 Sports, is our guest today. Look forward to a great hour of sports talk. Sean, welcome to the show. Thanks as always for joining us. And, before we get started, we'd like to talk a little bit about what's going on with you over at Fox 8, your great podcast, your blog. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, well, we keep on moving. We have my Fox 8 Overtime podcast. It's become kind of my passion project, if you will. It's kind of grown quite a bit. We just went over 500 episodes, so appreciate all that, everybody, for tuning in and watching and listening. Wherever you get your podcast on the Fox 8 Overtime YouTube channel, subscribe to that as well. We have one that will air on Thursday and will air on Friday this week, so check that out. And then we have our Fox 8 Overtime show at 10:35 on Fox 8, Final Bet at 10:35 on Fox 8, and the Final Play at 10:35 on Sunday night. Final Bet's on Thursday night. Right. Sunday night would be the Final Play. I still do my 5 Takes blog. Had one up after the Saints draft, so you can check that out. And then staying active on social media. So yeah, it's been it's that out. I know we're in May now, but April is a very busy month in the city of New Orleans. So many sports converge and come together, and we were all over it. We had last week was one of the busiest weeks I've ever had. It was insane. So, but we're in the trenches with it, and we're there to report and tell the story.
So no Rolling Stones for you today?
No, unfortunately, I missed the Stones. I would have loved to have gotten to see the Killers last week, but wasn't able to get out there. Draft caught me. So I don't think Jazz Fest is in the cards for me this week, but nonetheless. Hey, I had to miss it due to the draft, which is one of my favorite events to cover.
There's no doubt. And of course, the city's buzzing right now with the Stones. Hopefully, the weather holds out today, especially after the 2020 when they were here for the 50th annual Jazz Fest, and of course they got canceled because of COVID. All right, I know it didn't get canceled. Was the NFL draft, and well, I tell you what, we were on the radio show the other day, and interesting when you look at the number of picks they had. First of all, their patience, which was one thing that we didn't see a lot of in a lot of years. But the draft grades you're getting from, again, a lot of the national pundits out there, A's, A-, A+, B's, B-. What did you grade this draft?
I had it between a B- and a B. I thought it was solid. I thought it was a really solid draft. And when I say B or B- and I say solid, I don't have any real alarming criticism of the players. I just, the way the board shaped up, the way the board stacked up, I just feel like overall it's going to be hard in a draft class that was relatively thin, big picture wise, to have 5 picks from 150 on for all 5 of those guys to make the team. But nonetheless, the value at each and every pick, which is probably why they're getting the high grades, was relatively good and solid. I know, was it NOLA.com kind of did a composite of all the grades, and the Saints were kind of right in the middle there. They're getting some love nationally.
Yes.
You know, I'm a little more measured in it because I think I thought this draft really kind of fell right in line with free agency. It's just pretty straightforward, pretty steady, relatively safe, no real crazy moves in either direction, and you know they filled some needs and got some good football players, and we'll just see, you know, eventually how this class ends up turning out. But overall, I feel pretty good about the class.
Yeah. Let's talk about, again, I thought they filled some needs. There were some needs, obviously, that weren't filled, but again, the biggest need was offensive line. Talk about the first-round pick.
Taliese Fuanga was a guy that he was in my, you know, we've been doing offensive tackle research really since the end of the season because we all knew what was going to happen. And then when you had the added issue with Ryan Ramczak's updated health or downgraded health combined with James Hurst's retirement, clearly, I mean, the tackle had risen to the top of the board. Taliese Fuanga was on that list. I mean, he wasn't my number 1 guy, but he was certainly on that list. And after the Saints drafted him, I went back and watched him again, and I really started to like him a whole lot more because of the versatility. And when I say versatility, it's the versatility and style. Sometimes a mauler, physical, aggressive guy doesn't always have the fluid, agile, you know, athletic nature to them. It's usually one or the other. This guy has both, and it shows up on the tape. 700 snaps last season, rock solid when it came to the amount of starts, all at the right side for Oregon State. They ran the wide zone scheme. He's fluid in the run game, really gets to that second level well, which that is what this whole wide zone scheme is based upon. You've got to be able to get through your first guy and get to that next level for the double team. So you're talking about a guy that I believe at worst, he's a day 1 starter. At best, you might have your right tackle for the next 10 years or 8 years or whatever the case may be. He's a guy you can count on. So for that pick alone, given the dire situation you had at that position, you have no choice but to give this draft class a good grade because they desperately needed it and they checked their biggest box.
Right tackle is his position in the pros, or again, can he go to the left side?
I guess he
guard?
can go to the left side, but Eric, 700 snaps last year, right tackle, 25 starts at right tackle. Yes, I know he says it's easy to go from right to left, but every single professional offensive lineman that had this versatility, I use James Hurst for an example, because I spoke to him last year during training camp. I said, because he was going back between left guard, left tackle, he goes, left guard, left tackle isn't a big problem for me. It's going from left to right because the, you know, left-handed to right-handed. It's different.
Yes, it is.
So he may be confident he can do that, but that's not always the easiest transition at the professional level. So to me, you went out and got a right tackle. That tells me all I need to know about Ryan Ramczak. He, to me, is who I'm penciling in as starting right tackle for the New Orleans Saints in 2024.
I agree with you, and one of the things I've said, we've discussed it on both of the radio and TV shows, I do not like when the Saints select a player and then immediately move him to another position. A guy that's played a certain position in college, again, has excelled that position, and then you move them to another position, and then it takes a year or so within the pros to acclimate themselves in that position. You know, they get a lot of grief from the fans and the media because they're not up to what the expectations were. So again, to me, the best thing is put him at right tackle, leave him at right tackle, and let him be there for the next decade.
And given what you just went through with Trevor Penning, there needs to be some stability at whatever position you put him at, you can count on. That's what this team needs. This team needs, okay, he's a right tackle, he plays right tackle. Not, oh, when we see him at this, maybe he can do that. Like, that just causes too much confusion, and this team needs steady. This team needs solid. This team needs something you can count on up front. And if you really think about it, I mean, over the last couple seasons when it comes to offensive linemen, because Ruiz was a guy that was a center in college, and now he's been playing guard since day 1. Trevor Penning, we already talked about him, and obviously we'll see what happens with Fuanga. But to me, Fuanga, to me, is a McCoy type in that you can count on that guy. From day 1, McCoy was a day 1 guy. Fuanga should be a day 1 guy. Ramczak was a day 1 guy. Jari Evans was a day 1 guy. That, to me, is what you're getting, hopefully, with Fuanga.
Does this signal, because look, a lot of people thought maybe left tackle, right? Okay, but again, there's a significant investment in Trevor Penning. Does this signal that Penning's going to get another shot at left tackle? Does he move into guard? What do you think the future is for left?
Yeah, but
for
first
Penning?
off, and this is going to be hard for fans to hear, but they have not given up on Trevor Penning.
Right,
they have not. They still see a path to him getting on the field. Now, and saying that has to be this year, but he is getting a fresh start, fresh set of eyes, different system, and I'm telling you, when people I've spoken to, some of the issues with Penning are Penning.
Okay.
Some of the issues were a lack of detail or a lack of they didn't want to deal with a young kid, with a raw kid from a coaching standpoint. And you notice
so the previous coach.
So
was not there
you
now.
notice they've made some changes
Yes.
up front along that coaching staff. So they haven't quite given up on him yet. I don't know where he settles in at. I know initially the feeling is tackle, but we all know the way he plays, the way he moves, what his strengths are. I think he's a guard, but yeah, I'm not the guy evaluating. So he's somewhere on the left side. We know that, but that's only one position filled at most, at best. If he's able to, the light bulb comes on, he can be the player. Because if they come on now with this new coaching staff, it's not going to happen.
And
He's
look,
going to be relegated to backup.
Everybody's at ground zero right now, right? Everybody's learning the system.
it, everyone.
Now, maybe if Fuaga has a little bit of maybe a little bit of a head start because he's played in this type of system in college, but everybody starts at ground zero with the playbook, etc. And of course, as you mentioned, fresh set of eyes, right? In terms of a coaching staff and really an organization that needs him to develop into, again, a solid, if not great, left tackle.
Yeah, and I'm fine if it at the end of it all, he says, you know what, he's just a better guard, let's play him there.
Right.
As long as he's a starter.
Right, he has to be a plug-and-play starter.
He has to be a starter.
Right. I agree.
As long as he's developed enough that you can count on, and you just watch him play, and I know he's really big and long for a guard.
Right.
But you watch him play. Even when they ran zone scheme stuff last year, the way he's able to get on guys and just bury them into the ground, and how fluid he is going forward, and just how much he struggles playing in reverse at that left tackle position on an island. That's where I would lean towards, but they still see him as a tackle, and I think initially that's where the spot will be.
Okay. Let's talk about the second round pick. Again, Kool-Aid McKinstry, cornerback out of Alabama. Shocked me a little bit. But then again, when you look at the fact that they lost Yedem, they lost Johnson, again, the Lattimore situation, look, I think becomes a little bit clearer here now. Look, we don't know what happened behind the scenes. We don't know if Lattimore went to them and said, I want to get traded, okay, or the Saints went to Lattimore and said, look, we'd like to move you in the offseason. No matter what, they restructured his contract to make it easier for him to be traded. So they go out, they get a cornerback in the second round, who a lot of people had first round grades on. So you got to figure, again, something's brewing. Something's brewing at some point. What's your take on Kool-Aid, and then let's kind of morph into on again what may happen this offseason.
Look, we can say what we want about Dennis Allen. He is not going to have a bad secondary. He's a DB coach. He's not going to have a bad secondary. He pinpointed this guy. They like this guy. Despite the fact that he doesn't necessarily have the height dimension that they normally have. He's a little bit below 6 feet, which is something. So maybe they see him as an inside slot corner, which is something he said he could certainly do. But, and when DA focuses and hones in on a DB, he's usually right.
Yes.
He's usually right. So this gives them a pretty loaded cornerback room. You don't make an adjustment like that to a contract just to see what happens. I mean, they understand this is a possibility when it comes to Marshawn Lattimore, but it's also a possibility he returns. I think it's still what's the best offer, and if the best offer I get is a 4th or 5th round pick, well, it might be best to just keep him one more year and just deal with it later. If I get a 2nd round pick or a high 3rd round pick, maybe it's best to deal off Marshawn Lattimore, but.
Well, the market is a 3rd round pick right now, right?
That's what I would think. That's what I would think, but you never know.
Is that enough for Marshawn Lattimore?
I
in your
don't know.
opinion?
If it was a 3rd round pick, I would want something else. If it's a 2nd round pick, I would do it. But if it's a 3rd, it better be another late round pick to go along with that. That's just me.
Yeah.
Because I hold him in that regard. But he's a guy coming off of missed 17 games in 2 seasons when it came to injury, and obviously there's clearly been some kind of issue if all of a sudden they've made this decision and they have I know DA didn't mean to sound kind of weird, but everyone in the room kind of like, oh, you haven't spoke to Marshawn Lattimore since the offseason?
Right.
Like, it was kind of like, I know that's not terribly uncommon, but still, it caught all of our attention.
Right. Well, they obviously spoke. Obviously, the management spoke with it because they restructured the contract.
Yeah, but that was done during the season.
Right.
Or that was done at some point before the end of the season. So, look, I think it's to be determined, and I think that's fair. I don't think there's a deal done right now. I do think they're giving themselves the option for a player that does have some trade value, and if they can get stronger, if they can do that, get stronger as an organization, but also not leaving yourself vulnerable in the secondary, then I think they'll try to do that. Because make no mistake about it, the secondary was still pretty good the last couple seasons, even when Marshawn Lattimore missed. Now, in Kool-Aid's case, only thing, now that I've kind of had a few days to process that I wasn't necessarily in love with, did you have to move up? Did you have to move up to get him to sacrifice?
Well, there started to be a move on cornerbacks.
There was.
Maybe they panicked a little bit.
And look, maybe so. And maybe you could have got an interior lineman in the second round pick, or whatever the case, or pass catcher. I know the run on pass catchers was there as well. But when I look back and I think of that third and fourth round gap, which I'm sure you'll ask me about, if they had that extra fifth round pick and that extra sixth round pick, could you have maybe swapped up?
Which we had talked about a lot, right?
Talked about a lot. So that's the only thing I was a little bit okay, but it's what they do, man.
Right.
It's to the point now where it's like, look, it's going to happen once it drafts.
I thought they showed as much patience and restraint as they've ever shown.
They really did, and the fact that they came really close to going back early, which when they still had Fuanga and Fontanu on the board, and every defensive player, if they go back 2 spots, it would have been nice to see if they could have done that as well, but it didn't happen.
Where do you think Kool-Aid lands in terms of his position? Is he an interior player, where again maybe be the nickel or the dime, or again is he an outside guy? Played outside, man-to-man with Alabama. Nick Saban raved about him.
You know why? Because he doesn't take chances. He's a disciplined player, and that's what Nick. Man, you know Nick Saban. You better play with discipline, and you better be able to tackle if you're a cornerback for him. And it's not just press man with Nick Saban. Nick Saban has some of the most elaborate coverages you will ever find at the collegiate level or the NFL level. I think he starts, if everyone is healthy and back, I think he's your fourth corner, so he's your dime corner. And they do that a lot on third down. So you're going to be on the field a lot, but you probably end up settling in to see who could be the nickel. Alontae Taylor is not great at nickel. He's a mixed bag at nickel. Adebo's going into a contract year, but he's much better on the outside. I think you got to battle it out, see how that sorts itself out, because if he could be a little more natural inside, I could see a world where he beats out Alontae Taylor, who has expressed this multiple times to us, very open. He prefers the outside. But on the inside, if Kool-Aid could maybe figure it out quickly and get on the field, I don't see how it would be that crazy to think he could beat out Alontae Taylor for that job.
Yeah. We had talked about throughout the process of the possibility with 4 fifth-round picks of try to move back in the third and fourth round. When you graded out this draft, how many legitimate first or second rounders did you find?
You mean just
again, in terms of their grades?
Well, I didn't do the entire class.
Because they said it was about 50 players that they felt again had top grades on them.
It's about first and second round. You talk about the Saints class.
Saints, right.
I mean, it's probably
that's what Dennis said.
That's probably somewhere in that number, in that vicinity. There was some top-end talent. There was some decent middle-tier talent, and then it just fell off a cliff on the back end. And I said it on your show. There's a reason why so many kickers and punters were drafted, guys. I mean, that's a telltale sign. It's a telltale sign.
That's a great point.
So, yeah, I mean, probably somewhere in that number. And usually, it's not 32 first-round grades. It's in the 20s, and specifically with the Saints, who are pretty thin when it comes to their first-round grades.
And the reason why I asked that is because, again, they did not get back into third and fourth round. But again, at 150 overall in the fifth round, they draft a quarterback. Which, again, I don't think a lot of people saw coming. I certainly did not. Spencer Rattler out of South Carolina via Oklahoma. A guy that was thought when he came out of high school would be a Heisman Trophy winner, would be maybe the first overall pick in the draft. Obviously, Caleb Williams comes to Oklahoma. He moves on to South Carolina. Give me your thoughts on the pick, then give me your thoughts on the player.
Well, the pick is a value pick, and the Saints had no intention of going in and getting a quarterback in this draft. It was not on their radar, but they weren't going to run away from it if a highly graded prospect fell to them at a certain point. That's exactly what happened here. You know, I looked at the list of grades of prospects, which I'm sure you look at all the credible organizations and publications. Lowest I saw, Spencer Rattler, was 89. So to get an 89th rated player at 150 is obviously a great bargain. I have no problem with that in the 5th round because, as I said, when you get to that point in the draft and an overall thin class, chances are, Saints at their list of guys right here, way up here with Spencer Rattler left on the boards where he's just staring at you and staring at you and staring at you, you got to pick it. So Spencer Rattler, the pick, makes a lot of sense from a value standpoint if you believe in draft value, which the Saints do. Now they've got an absolutely loaded quarterback room. It's not going to stay that way.
No.
Probably will make a couple cuts very soon here at that room because there's no sense.
Well, you want the other guys to have a chance.
There's no sense in
go to
wasting
another
people's
team,
time.
right?
I mean, and Dennis Allen openly said it's going to be an interesting battle between Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener for the backup quarterback job. That's all you need to know. And the Kellen Mond signing out of nowhere anyway. So Peterman was fine, but even I think we can see the handwriting on the wall with both those guys.
Now let me ask this question because again, look at if that's the case. We know that Haener's been working with John Gruden in the offseason. Obviously, again, Spencer Rattler, you've invested a pick. It's a 5th round pick. Obviously, like them the battle, but there's no backup quarterback with NFL experience.
Yeah,
for a guy, Carr's tough. But that offensive line was porous last year. When I say tough, he played through injury.
Well, and look, that told you, but that question was already answered before the draft. Well, there were veteran quarterbacks available. They could have reached out and signed.
Well, they went and got Peterman, who knew the system.
Yeah, but Peterman wasn't. I mean,
no.
Was Peterman going to beat out Haener?
No, no way.
No. So that's how much they believed in Haener. And now you add another guy in Spencer Rattler. They're going to let these guys battle it out. And it is not a foregone conclusion that Rattler beats out Haener because, telling you, they love Haener. For first stretch of training camp last year, MVP of camp. I'm not kidding. Now, didn't quite translate on the field. Didn't play terrible in preseason, but could have been better. And Jameis obviously won that job. But there were whispers that he was beating out Jameis in camp. He wouldn't have got cut in training camp. Jameis wouldn't have. But perhaps at some point in the year that could have been a possibility. Had Haener played better in preseason, it didn't happen. But Rattler, the player, to me, is a guy I'm very curious because this is the first time in his football life he is going to go into a season where they say you are not the starter, you are not the headline, you are not the franchise player, you are a backup. And does that help him? A guy that's always been in the limelight since he was in high school.
Maybe?
But does it maybe help with the clarity of focus a little bit that maybe you don't have the expectations of I have to live up to the number one overall player in America. He did it at Oklahoma and it didn't work out. South Carolina came in, he was going to be the starter really from the day he got there. So I'm curious to see if it just maybe it shows up in the body language, a looser body, like just come in, relax, and just learn and develop because he's got some tools. I understand the intrigue, but the term wild card is accurate because there's a taste there of a guy you could see with flashes of starting quarterback material. But there are some inconsistencies and there's some growth and there's a level that he didn't quite reach when you look at all the areas of quarterbacking. There's a reason why Caleb Williams beat him out and remember Caleb Williams was on that podcast and said, I thought I was the best guy from day one. Frankly, I agree with that because everything Spencer does good, Caleb does great. And then I'm watching North Carolina, South Carolina tape last night. Spencer had a good game, but who was the other quarterback? Drake May. Drake May was better. So that's where I'm at with him is where is his ceiling at? Because the floor is, you might be able to see this guy be a high-end backup spot starter a la Gardner Minshew, but can he develop the skills and can he get a little bit better when it comes to pocket presence because he's a timing and rhythm quarterback? He's going to be at the next level. He's not going to be a runaround guy. Can he get better at pocket presence because that's the key to be that type of quarterback in the NFL to become a starter one day? Yeah, I think he can at some point, but he's got to get reps in training camp, reps in preseason. He's not going to get a whole lot of reps in the regular season, but he's just got to keep himself ready. So, intriguing pick, no doubt about it, especially in the 5th round.
4.9540. Again, I would say quicker and athletic more than fast. From everything I've seen in his career, accurate thrower.
Decent.
Accurate thrower, 6 foot tall. So again, so for visions of, again, 6 foot tall Drew Brees, right? But again, not a Drew Brees player. You mentioned what you think his ceiling would be. When you look at him as a quarterback, okay, for the New Orleans Saints, what would be his biggest attribute? Would it be the accuracy, his athleticism, the fact that he's got 4 years of experience in college?
I think right now, what I really like about him coming out, and you don't see this even from the top guys, he played in an offense that had whole field progression. So he's got really good field vision, which is one of the most underrated aspects of a quarterback. He's got good to very good accuracy. He's got a good arm. His deep ball, it's more of he's a drop in the bucket deep ball thrower as opposed to just a Josh Allen rocket launch type player. I think, like I said before, there's a little bit of issues when it came to pocket presence. Some of that could have been the offensive line he played behind because he saw some ghosts sometimes because pocket caving in on him. He's got a chance to hit that third read, doesn't quite do it. Like the way he works the middle of the field. I don't see that in college football. Guys effectively working the middle of the field.
Well, you've always talked about that. I mean, that's the difference between Jaden Daniels in his junior and senior year, right?
That was one of the biggest things. And if you watch Joe Burrow coming out of LSU, he lived in the middle of the field. That second level, intermediate between the seams. That's where that has to be a part of any NFL offense. You got to be able to consistently hit that level, and he did. And there are some flashes and some tastes of really good to great plays, individual plays. As a whole body of work, I think he's a guy that needs a little seasoning, but it would not be off the table to say he could be a starter in the NFL.
The second, fifth round pick, 170 overall, compensatory pick, Bub Means, wide receiver, Pittsburgh.
Well, they needed a pass catcher. They said as much. Dennis Allen said as much. I got to be honest with you. No, I think he can make the team. I think as a guy, he adds even more youth to a very young wide receiver room. So we'll see how that plays.
What's his prototype?
He's a little 6'1", maybe a shade over 6'1", bigger type. But he got 41 catches, 6 touchdowns. Is nothing. It's not like he's just an over the middle of the field possession type receiver. So he's a guy that may be able to make the tough catches.
They were looking for a possession receiver.
Yeah, maybe he can be that guy. I think that's what they're going to try to be him. Be that
big
guy.
Possession receiver.
But he's not big. He's big, but he's not a big receiver. He's 6'1.5", so big enough. But see, that's where when I started seeing the names go off in the third and fourth round, I saw one of my favorite tight ends in the class. I saw a couple of wide receivers go off. I saw some interior linemen. I'm like, man, it would be so good right now if the Saints had one more pick in that third and fourth round gap. But you pick with who you pick with. You're stuck with who you're stuck with. And I think Means is a guy that can make the roster. I think that's important when you talk about this stage of the draft.
Interesting prospect, Jalen Ford, linebacker out of Texas, with again their third, fifth round pick, 175 overall, another compensatory pick. Athletic guy. Again, obviously a special teams guy when he starts out. Is he the next? Is he a guy with Willie Gay with a 1-year deal that maybe fills a Willie Gay spot, or maybe is he a Demario Davis guy down the line here, or is he going to be a special teams guy? Had a nice career at Texas.
Yeah, really nice career. Played a lot of football, a lot of snaps. Was a team captain. Embraced special teams at the collegiate level, which is not something you normally see very often. I think his initial ticket on is going to be special teams. He's got to embrace that. Seems like he's a guy that's going to be willing to do so. He's a guy that if he's got the right makeup, he'll handle his rookie year correctly. He'll probably see some snaps, spot snaps here and there defensively, because I think your top 3 linebackers are going to be Davis, Werner, and obviously Willie Gay. So I think he's a player, again, can make the roster. I think he's a guy that's going to be a special teamer to start and then work your way in. It would be hard for me to project him as a Demario Davis type down the line. But I do think there's a guy that maybe, with enough seasoning and enough reps, can maybe at some point down the road become maybe a regular contributor on defense.
I'm intrigued by their 6th round pick, something that was needed and necessary, which is again a throwback run-stuffing defensive tackle. Christian Boyd, out of Northern Iowa, same place as Trevor Penning, defensive tackle, 199 overall. Your thoughts?
Now I've had a few days to process this. Might be the most important day 3 selection in the draft.
I'm telling you.
Because we did a podcast, and you'll see it's on our YouTube channel now. We did our podcast post-draft free agency, who the Saints should target. and they're thin at defensive tackle.
Yes.
And I went and looked at that market. Good luck. Good luck if you need a plug-and-play defensive tackle right now, because they're either coming off a season-ending injury or they're over the age of 34 or 33 years old.
Right.
So Boyd's a guy. People liked him in the pre-draft process. He fell a little bit. Coming out of Northern Iowa, is he going to be ready when you just dealt with a guy from Northern Iowa? And
didn't Dennis Allen just say that?
Yeah.
That again, the fact that there was such a jump from Northern Iowa for Penning. Now, is that Penning, or is that just again the type of football that's being played?
Penning type football and expectation.
Okay.
Boyd will have no expectation. Boyd, if he can settle in as the backup defensive tackle, that's a win, because they only have 3 D tackles that you can count on, and I think they need a 4th D tackle.
Me too.
And
I thought this was a huge
hopefully
need.
they can address that in the veteran free agency. But as I just said, there's no real names that jump out where you're like, yes, they got that filled. So the more I think about it, that Christian Boyd pick might be the most important pick of day 3.
Right. And so many people love their 7th round pick. Josiah Ezerim out of Eastern Kentucky, offensive tackle. What are your thoughts?
Big guy, developmental guy. Look, they need people up front. So that no one with an OL or an OT next to their name on the Saints right now should be considered a guarantee or a long shot. I mean, everyone should have an equal chance to compete. Coming out of Eastern Kentucky, they love his size, they love his length. DA even said he's a developmental guy. I would love to see him make the roster. I would love to see him develop into something, some kind of depth. Maybe he can be the tackle eligible, whatever the case may be. Intriguing guy. Don't know if he's a guy that makes an impact much.
Well,
his
7th
rookie
round
season.
picks rarely do, but there's a history there in New Orleans.
They do. I mean, look.
Zach Strief,
Caden Ellis. I mean, you name them. I mean, they've had Marcus Colston. They've all had 7th round picks that have contributed. I hope that's the case because that's their biggest need. That would have meant that this guy's ready to play. But I think that's a size, speed, physical trait guy that they kind of envision developing this guy for some years down the road.
Sean Vazan of Fox 8 Sports is our guest. I'm your host, Eric Asher. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. We'll hear from our underwriters. We'll come back. We'll continue our conversation about the Saints, the draft, and then, of course, we'll get into some Pelicans, Zurich Classic. With some time, we'll jump into some college baseball and football. But stay tuned for more Inside New Orleans Sports after these messages.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Sean Vazan of Fox 8 Sports, our guest today. All right, Sean, undrafted free agents. Saints have traditionally done very well with undrafted free agents. They need this now more than ever with the salary cap issues. They need some cheap labor here. Some players that you think, and look, they got a great reputation with agents, right? In terms of, again, you send your player here as an undrafted free agent, you got a real chance of getting on the field and playing. But of the list that's out there now, who do you like?
And look, just count them up: Rashid Shaheed, Groupie, Headley, guys that got their opportunity and they didn't shy away from because they had UDFA next to their name. But to me, the one that really jumps out is Colorado State tight end Dallin Holker.
Okay.
Go watch that tape. He's not fast. He's got a long stride, so he doesn't look that fast on tape, but then you see him in the Colorado game, he's catching that wide shallow cross, he's running over the field, he's making big catches downfield on the seam route. I said pass catcher. I would have loved to see him add a dynamic tight end in his class. He's not a dynamic tight end, but he's a guy that I think can make the roster when you look at that tight end group, because you got Johnson, who's decent, but I think I think they were a little disappointed overall. I thought he came on late last season.
Yes.
Taysom's Taysom.
Yes.
Boston Moreau is a guy, we know who he is. This guy, maybe he could be something that can develop down the road.
Well, they invested in him because he got the biggest bonus, again, guaranteed money of all undrafted free agents.
That's a tell. I mean, that's a good tell. Right. So I think he's a guy that certainly has a very realistic and legitimate shot at making the 53. Not the practice squad, but the 53.
Okay.
And look, if they gave him that much money, other teams were vying for his services.
That's right.
So the other name was Jacob Cabody, UL linebacker, running back, out of Raging Cajun country. Look, I mean, the Saints have had a history of undrafted free agents when it comes to the running back position. AK is coming back. Jamal Williams, I felt like, man, he really hit a wall last year when you talk about the year before to last year. I like Kendre Miller, but is it crazy to think an undrafted free agent could win that last roster spot, not just running back, but roster spot, the 53rd guy, or maybe he's a practice squad, active practice squad, maybe.
Yes.
And then I had this in my mock draft. I alluded to it earlier. Vanderbilt punter Matthew Hayball. Look, there was a ton of punters drafted. I had Torrey Taylor, the Iowa punter, and I said on my mock draft, I said, don't be surprised if 7th round is too late. That guy went in the 4th round, Torrey Taylor. So, and he would have walked on day one, and to me, been in the lead for that punter battle. This is another Australian guy. Lou Headley is obviously an Australian guy. He's a little bit younger than Lou Headley, who was a 30-year-old rookie a season ago. And if you're the Saints, and you got to find ways where you can just get a little bit better in every area, you're telling me a little bit better field position, a little bit better at flipping the field wouldn't make a difference in how close everything is in the NFL?
Right.
All options should be on the table. That job should be a competition, the punter job. So Matthew Hayball is the other one that I really like in terms of undrafted free agents.
Saints have been a little bit active in post-draft free agency. I'm going to be interested to see what happens here. Again, not just with post-draft free agency, again, once we get into training camp and teams start to see what they have, but also UFL. That's another part of this one, okay? If I'm the Saints, I'm scouting UFL. I'm looking for linemen. I'm looking for, again, the defensive tackle that maybe is not going to be available in the NFL right now. And seeing what, again, because this is the developmental league for the NFL now, the UFL. I mean, again, you have a chance for guys that, again, that maybe haven't quite made the NFL to have a chance to go. It used to be Canada. Now it's the UFL. So there's a chance that maybe they go there. Shane Lemieux, again, the guard out of formerly the Giants. Justin Herron, again, a left tackle formerly of I believe the Raiders, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken. But again, talk about both those guys, both veteran guys that are going to be coming in here to maybe help along the offensive line.
I mean, they're telling you. They're telling you what they need.
Right.
They're telling you. Again, we just talked about, who is your left tackle? Who is your left guard? Do you know? I mean, the whole left side.
Right.
And the guy you have penciled in, is he going to be good enough? No one knows. Who can you pencil in? I mean, you've got like Ali Udo, you got Nick Saldiveri, you got Trevor Penning. I mean, those are the options before the addition of Herron and Shane Lemieux.
Right.
But those guys obviously had some, injury issues as well. So I welcome it. I mean, bring it in and see what you have.
Right.
Compete, see who, and I don't think they're done. I mean, this post-draft free agency wave is easily the most under-discussed, underrated part of the NFL calendar, because you got the big-ticket free agent, second-wave free agent, draft, and then you get in the OTs. This little gap in between where they got Tyrann Mathieu and Jarvis Landry a couple seasons ago. You usually can get some decent names that could be available, and I still think there's a player or two up front they're going to target.
And I guess I don't want to say change of philosophy, but because, again, of the restraints of the salary cap, they're giving guys one-year deals. So in a lot of cases, a guy that wants to do a prove-it-to-me deal, so to get back on the market, this might be a place they might look at. Another intriguing player that they signed this week was defensive back Will Harris, formerly of Detroit. Your thoughts?
Versatility, can play outside, can play inside, can play safety, can even play a few snaps at linebacker, a special teams guy. Kind of, as the years went on in Detroit, snaps diminished defensively, but embraces his role as special teams. Exactly what you need in that secondary. Another veteran presence is going to be willing to play special teams and give you some position flexibility. Not unlike Ugo Amadi, who could play the nickel, who could play safety. True. So, look, there's no guarantee all these guys make the team, but you get them in camp.
Right. You want competition.
You had a need at the safety position.
Right.
You can count up the corners. I listed the top four. Who's number 5?
Right.
This guy can play corner. So I have no problem with that signing. It's a one-year deal. It's a safe signing. A guy, hopefully he's motivated, coming from a good program, obviously, with Dan Campbell in Detroit the last couple of seasons. So I think it's a decent signing at this part of free agency.
Now that we've seen the draft conclude, we saw the Saints obviously in free agency with, again, how they attack free agency as well. We're looking at, again, post-draft free agency. This is where they kind of look at their needs and say, okay, now we have to target certain needs. So what are the needs that are left on this team right now?
I mean, there has to be someone on the offensive line that you sign, you say, okay, I can envision him being the starter.
Okay.
Because I don't know if anyone you've signed is that. Even Aliuta, who's got starter, experience.
He's kind of like a James Hurst type, right? He's the guy that you want
and
to
I think that's probably where he's best.
You don't want him to start. You want him to be a guy to be the utility
probably
guy.
when he was signed, that was what they were envisioning, because they probably already knew or had an inkling about James Hurst at that point.
Well, they said they knew in March, so that's
so it lines up, and he's almost got the exact resume as James Hurst.
It really does.
I mentioned defensive tackle, but good luck finding a decent veteran defensive tackle.
That's why I think you may have to go to UFL.
And then, look, we can name Chris Olave at wide receiver. We love Shaheed. Is he a true number 2? Is A.T. Perry a true number 2 or 3?
Is Olave a true number 1?
Exactly. So my point to you is, I wouldn't be against bringing in a wide receiver. Even, and I know I like the Cedric Wilson. I think he can have an impact.
Right.
And I like the draft pick. We already talked about that. But hey, man, this is competition. No one should feel safe. No one should feel safe for their job right now. So I think a wide receiver wouldn't be a bad idea either.
I give Mickey Loomis a lot of grief on my radio show in this show. Okay, but I do, and I said this on radio the other day. I want to give him his props. It takes a big individual to know what you don't know. And I was shocked to hear this, that, obviously Jeff Ireland was there, but they brought in Randy Mueller, again, former Saints GM, who was, again, fired by Tom Benson after he interviewed with the Atlanta Falcons, which is shocking because, again, in that organization, once you are considered a traitor, you are ostracized for life, okay? But again, remember, it was Mueller that brought Loomis on board here in New Orleans, but it didn't stop there. Dave Ziegler as well, the former Raiders GM. Both those guys,
well respected.
Right. So then you have Ireland, Loomis, Mueller, and Ziegler in the draft process.
You got a lot of GMs.
That's a lot of GMs. That's a lot of knowledge, institutional knowledge that was there. And I thought, well, maybe that's why there was a little restraint in the 3rd and 4th rounds, not going into next year's picks. But again, when you look at the picks and you look at the grades, obviously it was advantageous for them to have all those guys in that room for them. When you looked at the shot from ESPN or NFL Network when they went into the draft room and you saw all those guys standing there, you're like, whoa, okay. But that could turn out to be huge for this team.
Well, like I know, because I have criticized him for this, because sometimes Mickey can be like, is his heart beating right now because it's just so low energy. Like the pre-draft press conference was pretty low energy in my opinion. He could be very vague, could be very dry sometimes. He can, sometimes he can kind of morph into that, kind of the numbers guy personality, which is what it is. I've seen him in other instances where he shows a great personality, but this coming off the press conference where the gum chewing, it was weird, it was awkward energy. But don't mistake that for him not wanting to win. They want to win, and everyone has has really been, local media included, we've asked him, when is it for you? Like hinting, maybe your time is up. Right. So he's hearing all this stuff.
He's in his 60s, so yeah.
So my point is, he still wants the organization to win, and he does not necessarily. He is not. One thing I'll say, he does not have the big GM ego. So to bring in a guy like Ziegler and Randy Mueller with Jeff Ireland right there goes to show you the draft has to get better. The draft process has to get better. There has to be some fresh eyes looking at fresh draft data. And look, clearly there's I don't care about anybody's feelings here, because honestly, the one you'd be like, oh, well, that's kind of a slap in Jeff Ireland's face. But I think it was a collaborative effort.
Right.
I think it was, and it was the whole idea of we have to get better. So sometimes they can present a lack of urgency on the outside, but I think clearly that shows there is urgency on the inside to get things back on track.
For either current or former GMs in that room.
Right.
Okay, that have been through so many drafts.
Yeah.
I mean, that cannot do nothing but help you going forward. We shift from the New Orleans Saints to the New Orleans Pelicans. Oh. A wonderful season, 49 wins. Zion plays 70 games. Brandon Ingram plays more games than he's ever played in the league since he was a Los Angeles Laker. And of course, the vibe of this town with the Pelicans all year long was it upbeat until we get to the last couple weeks of the season, regular season, and then of course getting swept by the Oklahoma City Thunder 4-0. I think a few things happened here. I think, again, first of all, things that we had talked about in the offseason, we had talked about at the trading deadline, things that didn't come to fruition for this team. And I know they wanted to see what they had, but a lack of a veteran point guard, lack of an athletic big. And yes, the lack of physicality with this team. Same song, different verse for the Pelicans when you talk about from last season to this season. Not the good taste in your mouth that you would feel like after you've won 49 games. David Griffin said that again they're not standing pat in this offseason, but it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. You've got C.J. McCollum with $63 million left on his deal. He'll be 33 when the season starts. Brandon Ingram has 1 year left on his deal at $36 million. If he gets a Supermax deal, you're talking $50 up to $65 million over 4 years. So 50, 55, 45, and 65 is what Bobby Marks put out on what his contract would be. For a guy that, again, is great in the regular season, but can't handle the physicality of the postseason. Talk about the New Orleans Pelicans. This is a crossroads for this organization right now. Once again,
I'll just start kind of where you're at.
Go ahead.
Season comes to an end, and I can't just get this image out of my head of Zion Williamson unavailable again, Brandon Ingram ineffective again.
Yes.
C.J. McCollum ineffective again.
Right.
Willie Green, a fourth quarter collapse again.
Right.
It can't all come back with those four. At least one of those four got to go.
Agreed.
There has to be a major change of one of those four, possibly two.
Right.
So I leave this season with an incredibly disappointing feel because, as you said, there were waves of this season where it felt like things are getting back on track.
Right.
But when you get into the postseason and you see how much the intensity amped up against a younger team,
yes,
and your team couldn't handle it, that's a problem. And, you had an opportunity to avoid this play-in stuff altogether if you just take care of business in the season finale against the LA Lakers. You do not do that.
That's right.
So you got to play an extra game. What happens in the extra game? Zion, your franchise star, goes out and he's never seen again in the postseason, or at least on the court.
Right.
So many opportunities, and there's just something missing. There is just something missing where it never completely comes together, whether it's from a coaching standpoint or the big three that you have. The combination, and I do applaud Griffin saying we've seen enough of this group now to know what we have, and I think it's a sign of they're going to make a legitimate change going forward. We'll see what that ends up being. But when I saw that image at the game, it just stuck with me how no matter how much you can talk this, that, or if we get this, we get that, the exact same problems persisted after what was billed a successful season for the Pelicans.
Right. And look, regular season was successful. But the NBA, like in any other professional sport, it's about the postseason. It's about winning championships. And again, and look, I know
can we stop being afraid of that expectation as a fan base?
That has to be
as
the
a fan base. I got destroyed on social media for my comment on Willie Green with the "I'm proud of our guys fight" thing.
Right.
I didn't realize it was that section of the internet that was so you're not allowed to criticize Willie. Are we afraid of any sort of contender or expectation when it comes to basketball in this town? Why shouldn't there be? Why shouldn't there be with the money they've spent on this? I mean, come on, man. And this is professional sports. You had a great season. At times you looked fantastic. You had control of your own destiny. You're telling me if you're the 6th seed and you get that time off and you're able to watch, maybe things go a little bit better in the playoffs.
Sure.
And no one expected you to win the title this year, but I was expecting to get a first round, advance through the first round, and battle in the second round.
Right.
And if you lose in the second round, fine. But let's not be afraid of contender status or wanting to be a contender or wanting to win a championship in basketball in this town.
But there's got to be some changes. You cannot stand
this group is maxed out.
Let's face it. You know, when you got $5 tickets on the secondary market for, again, a Game 4 playoff game, okay? And I know there's a lot of stuff going on in the city that this past weekend. Game 3 and Game 4, when those tickets are that cheap, that is a signal to management there's an issue. Just like with the Saints. When the Saints see their season ticket holders, again, putting their tickets on the secondary market and the opposing team's fans are coming in and filling the dome, that's got to be, again, something that gets the attention of management and ownership. So, again, you have a step that you have to take here now. Can you afford, again, a guy that disappears, even though he's one of your leaders in the playoffs, in a C.J. McCollum making $63 million over the next 2 years? Can you afford to give Brandon Ingram a max extension when the guy cannot play through physicality in the playoffs? Look, the Pelicans got out physical by the Oklahoma City Thunder, who I can promise you will get out physical for the rest of the playoffs.
That's right.
Okay? So they need physicality. And look, they need a veteran point guard, a quarterback. The question is now, is it addition by subtraction? And I think it has to be when you start looking at the salary cap, because this team, or at least organization right now, even though they talk a good game, they're not willing to go over the luxury tax threshold.
No, but I mean, look, and
you may have to if you re-sign one.
Here's the thing. Max contract Brandon Ingram is a no for me. I mean, you've seen enough.
There's no way you can do it.
You've seen enough. He's way too inconsistent. He's clearly, when the playoffs start, he's not the same guy. Same thing with C.J. McCollum.
Right.
You know, he's the guy that carried this team at times during the season.
I just think he got worn out.
But this is not the first time in the postseason.
No.
Go back to when he was with Portland and the Pelicans played him.
That's right.
Disappeared.
Right. Drew Holiday shut him down.
Disappeared. And then I didn't realize, from a defensive standpoint, he's not the same player in the playoffs either. He's not an elite defender when it comes to defending.
You saw
guys.
that. You saw him against SGA.
There has to be. I don't think both those guys are gone, but I think at least one of those guys would have to be gone. But then there's another factor, and that's this: any organizational decision that does not include we're not going to have our star player for a significant portion of the season, or when it matters the most in the postseason, because how many seasons has this been now with Zion where he's been available for the final game of the season? Zero.
Right.
0 seasons been available for the final game of the season. That has to factor into every single organizational plan.
But he is signed, and he did show some promise this year. So again, they're not going to give up on him.
No, they can't. They can't do
cannot.
it.
But you better have to maybe again. They have figured out that, and look, that the Brandon Ingram, C.J. McCollum, and Zion Williamson as the big three don't work. They just don't
that's
mesh.
1,000% correct.
They don't mesh.
It's
and
not
you
working.
have to make a change now. And to me, again, the athletic big is huge. You need that. I want Valanciunas back, but he makes $15 million a year. I can tell you a team right now that's got him on their radar, Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
He'd be perfect for Oklahoma City.
Right.
Okay, backing up Holmgren, okay? Then he's not going to take a pay cut to stay in New Orleans, okay? Najee Marshall, he's going to get a mid-level exception somewhere. Now, if the Pelicans do move off one of their stars, maybe they have enough money to bring him back. But if not, again, you're losing the toughest guy on your team.
Yeah, but okay, I think Griffin was alluding to this.
Right.
That's fine.
Right.
But it's the infrastructure now, big ticket guys that has to be a change.
Right.
So that's fine. If you can't bring Najee Marshall, that would be that would
Larry
be
Nance
tough.
is in the last year of his deal.
Larry Nance is another one, man. I go back and forth with him as well because he's kind of an undersized center. Sometimes he can be an athletic guy. Other times though,
But he's your second or third guy, center.
Yeah,
okay?
I would love a center. I like the way Holmgren plays, the way he kind of hovers around the rim.
Right.
He battled. Jonas gave him all he could handle.
Everything.
I mean, he gave him all he could handle. And look, there was sometimes Jonas got the best of him, but also you can see, a guy that's a shot blocker and moves really well without the ball and can kick out and knock down a three. Those guys don't grow on trees though.
No,
at
they
7
don't.
foot.
No, they don't. Which means again, you have to give up something to get something. Now, again, there's a school of thought out there that says, man, you signed Brandon Ingram because you're not going to get value for him now because he bombed out with Team USA and he bombed out in the playoffs. So again, he's coming off a year where during the year he played well, but can you get value for him? It'll be interesting to see again how that plays out. But again, to me, center, athletic big, and look, if you trade an Ingram or a C.J. McCollum, you got to bring in more scoring.
Yeah, you would do, and hopefully you would get something like that.
But you have made a fair point about, again, look, you can't have you can't have your two stars that are injury prone. And that's what you have in Ingram and also Zion.
I mean,
now at least CJ plays through injury or push through injuries, but you can't have that. Okay, so there's got to be one or the other.
And it felt like CJ did play better when Zion was on the court, and when Zion was unavailable.
But the stats show out that they don't. If you look at the advanced stats,
I know it's when the three were together, right? It was a negative. I understand that. You're in this kind of this perpetual state of maybe when it comes to the Pelicans in terms of what deal you can do. Because you're right. If you lose in Ingram, you'd have to bring some scoring back.
Although Trey Murphy
can Trey be the guy that fills the void?
He could be that. Trey Murphy could be that second scorer.
You got an elite defender in Herb Jones.
Trey Murphy might be that guy. And with more
I would be willing for a little more chemistry, a little more cohesion. I would be okay with that.
And maybe that's their thought process here. Maybe it's time to move off of Brandon and allow Trey Murphy to get into a starting lineup.
Why not?
And expand his game.
Because he's a better three-point shooter.
He is.
BI's mid-range game, and then they want him to shoot threes. He doesn't shoot them.
No.
Murphy has never been afraid to shoot a three-pointer.
Only got 3 minutes left. I have to ask you about the Zurich Classic. Again, had some of the top players in the world take part in that team format. Rory McIlroy, number 2 in the world. Shane Lowry win the tournament on the one-hole playoff. The crowds were the biggest ever. I saw Garland's video of Rory and Lowry singing. It seemed like to me again that this tournament has taken off since they gone to team play. It saved the tournament. There's no doubt about it. But again, that when you get a guy like McIlroy who had such a great time here in New Orleans, this seems like, again, this is the beginning of the precursor of, again, seeing more and more top players here.
You have a vision for what it could be when you get when you land a star like Rory, and somehow it surpassed it. I don't think they could have hit a bigger grand slam, a bigger home run. I mean, you talk about one of the best players in the world. The fact that you got him here, huge. The fact that he played so well, him and Lowry, they played so well.
Enormous.
And you saw the crowds around him walking, following him. So the biggest star comes to your city for the unique setup of this tournament, which, kudos to the Zurich. I mean, it was the best possible thing they could have done. Separate yourself from the rest of the tournament. You're a unique city. You're never going to be the Masters. All these. Do it your way, and this is their way, and that allured this guy with Lowry. They played. They didn't just win. They won in dramatic fashion. The crowds were awesome. The weather was great. He's being asked all week because Garland does a phenomenal job with. Garland's a big restaurant guy, so he wants to know where you ate. He wants to know where you ate and asking questions. So he was talking all week about it, and then to top it all off, you go into the Champions tent after, and you get the moment, and you got. What is the name of that band? My goodness, that was playing. It's the 80s band.
Yeah.
They're all, and they do Journey, and he seizes the moment, and he starts singing, chugging Mick Ultras. That was the most beautiful New Orleans golf moment I have ever seen. You could not have written a better script to that.
I agree.
It was marvelous. It was perfect. Tom Long, the head of PR for the Zurich, does a fantastic job, so kudos to him. I'm happy for all those guys. Man, I hope it's the start of that being the regular every single year, because Rory's coming back now.
He is coming back.
There's no other place there's no other stop on the PGA Tour you can get that.
I agree.
And to me, it was freaking awesome.
Well, and let me say this, Sean. I mean, again, look, the tournament's always been a little bit different. I mean, we do it so well. I mean, it oozes New Orleans. The food, the hospitality, the band after the final.
Right. Who does that? Right. Who does that?
I mean, again, other tour stops are stealing it from us again. I mean, so and then you add the team play, and now you got the ear and the eyes of, again, some of the best players in the world who are going to hear Rory talk about, man, I went to this restaurant, I was this and that, New Orleans was incredible. I don't know if you made it to Jazz Fest, but whatever, okay? Yeah. This is the beginning of something really big.
I was so mad at myself for not going Sunday, because I had off Sunday, but I decided to we did some other stuff. When I saw the video, I'm like, are you kidding me? This is how it ended? This is awesome. This is fantastic.
This is a Jazz Fest weekend with draft and then the Pelicans in the playoffs.
And my goodness, it was fantastic. So
really
job well done, Zurich Classic.
Well, job well done for you, my friend.
Thank you, my friend.
Again, do a great job. Again,
always
with
fun
Fox
being
8. Love having you on this program, the radio show, and again, you do a great job in breaking down. Now, nobody breaks down film like this guy. And look, if you're not listening to the podcast on a day-in, day-out basis, you are missing out. Sean, one more time.
the Fox 8 Overtime podcast on our YouTube channel, Fox 8 Overtime, wherever you get your podcasts, and just watch Fox 8. You'll see us there. We got a lot of sports to cover.
Thank you, my friend.
All right, my friend.
There you go. Sean Pazan of Fox 8 Sports. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there are so many ways to catch our program now. There's a QR code on your screen that will take you to my website, ericasher.com, the WLAE-TV YouTube channel. I say it every week. Set your DVR. You'll never miss the program. Pelican Sports, WLAE, WLAE-TV 2. So many ways to catch our show. And, of course, our YouTube channel as well. You catch me on the radio, 106.1 The Ticket. That is 4 to 6 weekdays. We've got a new app called 106.1 The Ticket. You can listen on iHeartRadio app, TuneIn Radio app, Anchor, Spotify is where you can find our podcast. Search Inside New Orleans Show with Eric Asher. And then, of course, again, we want to thank, again, the folks here at WLAE-TV and also our great sponsors that make this show happen. Again, our underwriters are the reason why this show is on the air. Please support our underwriters. And, of course, the folks here at WLAE-TV do a great job. Ron Yeager, Jim Dodson, Alex Chacon, Jane Wright, Danielle Wick, best director on the planet, William Hill. For Sean Pazan, I'm Eric Asher. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.
The roots of St. Bernard Parish run deep. Here, you'll find a vibrant mix of culture, nature, strength, and hometown spirit. The Miro Foundation is celebrating 10 years of its current board of directors. For a decade, the Family Foundation has been realizing a vision that started with Arlene Miro, funding better schools, attracting new families and businesses, investing in the safety, health, and future of the community. Miro Foundation grants have nurtured the arts and created an arts campus, seeded startups and grown the economy, uplifted students, and provided land for a school, a hospital, and more. This is the land we call home, and the Miro Foundation is leading the effort to restore our coast. Dockville Farm stands as a testament to that commitment and as a welcoming place to share ideas and celebrate our culture.